The alarm screamed through the control room of Nexus 7, the Empire's most advanced deep space watching station. Sensor analyst Kethvar jumped in his chair, his four eyes widening as numbers flashed across his screen. "Numbers that should not exist, Commander," Kethvar called out, his voice shaking. "We have a contact. Moving at .97 light speed." Commander Yexdal rushed over, his heavy footsteps echoing in the metal corridors. The Zeltharian looked at the screen with confusion. In 300 years of ruling the galaxy, nothing moved that fast. Nothing. "Check your equipment," Yexdal said. "This must be a mistake." Kethvar ran the scan again. Then again. The reading stayed the same. An object roughly the size of a small ship, racing through space at almost the speed of light itself. It moved in a straight line, avoiding all the busy space lanes where merchant ships traveled. "Sir, it's real," Kethvar whispered. "And it's heading toward our core worlds." The commander felt his blood turn cold. He reached for the emergency communication device. This information had to reach the High Council immediately. Within minutes, screens across the station showed the same impossible reading. Officers gathered around, speaking in hushed voices. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was still a mistake. Others stared in silence, knowing their sensors were the best in the galaxy. "Where did it come from?" asked Lieutenant Vexmore. Kethvar shook his head. "Unknown. Our deep space sensors picked it up near the Rim territories. But there's nothing out there. No planets, no space stations, no civilization for thousands of light years." "Energy signature?" Commander Yexdal demanded. "None that we can identify, sir. It's not using any propulsion system in our database. No plasma drives, no fusion engines, no antimatter reactors. It's just moving." The commander felt a chill run down his spine. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. They knew every type of technology in the galaxy. Their ships were the fastest, their weapons the strongest. But this thing moved faster than their best military vessels. "Communication signals?" he asked. "Silent on all frequencies, sir. No transponder, no identification beacon, no response to our hailing attempts. Whatever it is, it doesn't want to talk." Admiral Zexthal arrived within the hour, his personal transport ship docking with unusual speed. The admiral was a veteran of 50 space battles, a Zeltharian who had never shown fear. But when he looked at the sensor readings, his hands trembled slightly. "How long until it reaches inhabited space?" Admiral Zexthal asked. Kethvar calculated quickly. "At current speed and trajectory, it will pass through the Kethmore system in 18 hours. That's our main industrial world in this sector." 18 hours, the Admiral repeated, "and we have no idea what it wants or who sent it." Emergency messages went out across the Empire. Every available warship in 3 sectors received orders to intercept the unknown object. Battlecruisers changed course. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch, and defense stations powered up their weapons. But there was a problem. The object was too fast. "Sir," reported Captain Hexval from the battleship Dominator, "we're moving at maximum speed, but we can't catch up. By the time we reach where it should be, it's already gone." Similar reports came from ships across the sector. The Empire's finest vessels, machines that could cross star systems in days, were too slow. They were chasing something that made their advanced technology look primitive. "What about the defense stations around Kethmore?" Admiral Zexthal asked. "They're ready, sir. All weapons charged, shields at maximum, but—" Commander Yexdal hesitated. "But what?" "Sir, if this thing can move at near light speed, it can probably avoid our weapons easily. Our targeting computers aren't designed for something that fast." The Admiral stared at the main screen, watching the tiny dot that represented the unknown object. It moved with perfect precision, never wavering from its path, never slowing down. Whatever was controlling it knew exactly where it was going. "Analysis of the trajectory," he asked. "It's avoiding all major shipping lanes, sir. No commercial traffic, no military patrols, no space stations. It's like it knows our territory better than we do." That thought made everyone in the room uncomfortable. How could something unknown have detailed maps of Empire space? How long had it been watching them? Could it be a probe? Asked Lieutenant Vexmore. Maybe someone sent it to gather information. A probe moving that fast? Admiral Zexthal shook his head. The energy required would be enormous. Only a major civilization could build something like this. "But there are no major civilizations beyond the Rim," Commander Yexdal said. "We've explored those regions. Empty space, dead worlds, nothing but cosmic dust and radiation." The Admiral walked to the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, something impossible was racing toward their worlds, something that broke every rule of physics they understood. "Prepare all defense fleets," he ordered. "Every ship, every station, every weapon we have. And send a message to the High Council. Tell them we may be facing something completely new." As the hours passed, more reports came in. The object never deviated from its path, never responded to communications, never showed any sign of slowing down. It passed through empty space like a ghost, leaving only the faintest energy trace. "Sir," Kethvar called out, "I'm detecting something strange." "What now?" the Admiral asked tiredly. "The object, it's not just moving fast. It's moving too perfectly. Our computers calculated its path, and it's precise down to the smallest measurement. No drift, no course corrections, no navigation errors. It's like it's riding on invisible tracks." Admiral Zexthul felt his heart's beating faster. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered anything this mysterious. The unknown object represented everything the Empire feared most, a reminder that they might not be the most powerful force in the galaxy. "Time to Kethmore system?" he asked. 14 hours, sir." The Admiral looked around the room at his officers. These were experienced soldiers who had fought in dozens of campaigns. But now they looked uncertain, almost afraid. They were about to face something completely outside their understanding. "Maintain tracking," he ordered, "and prepare for anything. Because I have a feeling that in 14 hours, everything we know about this galaxy is going to change." The alarm continued to sound softly in the background, a constant reminder that something impossible was racing toward them through the darkness of space. Something with no identification, no signal, and no known origin. Something that moved too fast for the Empire to stop. The impossible object finally slowed down. Sensor analyst Kethvar watched his screens in amazement as the mysterious contact dropped from near light speed to almost nothing in just a few minutes. The energy readings during the deceleration were unlike anything he had ever seen. "Sir," he called to Admiral Zexthul, "it's stopping near Kethmore." But the way it slowed down, that should have torn apart any normal ship. Admiral Zexthul studied the readings. The object had gone from traveling at almost light speed to moving slowly, all without showing signs of damage or stress. The forces involved should have destroyed anything made of normal matter. "What can you tell me about it now that it's not moving so fast?" the Admiral asked. "It's definitely a ship, sir. About the size of one of our frigates, but the energy signature is strange. It's putting out power readings like a battleship, but in patterns we don't recognize. Any response to our communications?" "Still silent, sir. We've tried every frequency, every standard greeting protocol, nothing." The Admiral turned to the main viewing screen. The Kethmore system was one of the Empire's most important industrial worlds. Millions of Zeltharians lived there, working in the massive factories that produce ships and weapons for the military. "If this unknown vessel had hostile intentions, status of our fleet?" he asked. "The second battle group is 3 hours away," reported Commander Yextal. "The defense stations around Kethmore are ready, and the system patrol ships are moving to intercept." But Admiral Zexthul felt uneasy. Something that could travel at near light speed and stop so perfectly was not going to be troubled by normal weapons. Still, they had to try. 2 hours later, the first Imperial ships reached the unknown vessel. Captain Morseth commanded the patrol cruiser Vengeance, one of the fastest ships in the local fleet. He approached carefully, all weapons ready but not yet targeted. "Unknown vessel," Captain Morseth broadcast. "You have entered Imperial space without permission. Identify yourself immediately or we will consider you hostile." For the first time in hours, the mysterious ship responded, but not with words. "Admiral," Kethvar shouted from his station. "The object is moving again." On the screens, they watched the unknown ship begin to dance. There was no other word for it. The vessel moved in ways that made no sense, turning and spinning without showing any exhaust or engine flare. It twisted through space like a living thing, avoiding the patrol ship's attempts to get close. "Captain Morseth," Admiral Zexthul called over the communication system. "Can you target it?" "Negative, sir. Every time we lock on, it moves. Not just fast, it seems to know where we're aiming before we fire." The Admiral watched in growing amazement as the unknown ship performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. It moved sideways without turning, stopped instantly without showing any deceleration, and changed direction in ways that violated basic physics. "Sir," Commander Yextal said quietly, Our computers are trying to track its movements, but they can't predict where it will be next. It's like it's not following normal rules of motion. More Imperial ships arrived, surrounding the mysterious vessel. The second battle group brought heavy cruisers and destroyers, ships with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the unknown ship continued its impossible dance, staying just out of weapon range. All ships, Admiral Zexthol ordered, coordinated attack pattern. Fire on my mark. Sir, Captain Morseth responded. We can't get a target lock. The thing moves like it's reading our minds. Then fire where it's going to be. That's the problem, sir. We don't know where it's going to be. Our computers can't calculate its movement patterns. Admiral Zexthol felt a cold fear growing in his chest. The Empire's ships use the most advanced targeting systems in the galaxy. They could hit targets moving at incredible speeds, could predict enemy movements based on physics and probability. But this ship moved outside those rules. Try manual targeting, he ordered. The Imperial ships opened fire. Plasma cannons lit up space with deadly energy, while missile launchers sent waves of explosive warheads toward the target. It was enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The unknown ship moved through the attack like it was dancing in rain. Every shot missed, not because the Imperial gunners were poor shots, but because the ship was never where the weapons expected it to be. It slipped between plasma bolts twisted around missiles, and moved through the deadly light show without taking a single hit. Impossible, whispered Commander Yextal. But then something even more impossible happened. The mysterious ship stopped moving. It hung in space, perfectly still, while the Imperial fleet regrouped around it. For several minutes, nothing happened. The tension grew so thick that Admiral Zexthol could hear his own heart's beating. Then the ship sent a message. It came on an old radio frequency, the kind used by primitive civilizations centuries ago. The signal was clear and strong, but the language was completely unknown. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. We're here to talk. The message repeated several times while the Imperial ships held their positions. Admiral Zexthol called for the xenolinguists, the experts who studied alien languages, but they were as confused as everyone else. Sir, Lieutenant Vexmore said, the computer is analyzing the language patterns. It's unlike anything in our database, but it seems to be structured for complex communication. Whoever these Terrans are, they have advanced linguistics. Can we respond? The Admiral asked. We can try, sir, but we don't know their language. Admiral Zexthol thought for a moment. The ship had demonstrated abilities beyond Imperial technology, but now it wanted to talk. That was better than continued fighting against something they couldn't hit. Send a response on the same frequency, he ordered. Mathematical sequences, universal constants, basic physics. Show them we're intelligent. The reply came back within minutes. More of the unknown language, but this time with mathematical formulas mixed in. The xenolinguists worked frantically, using the mathematics as a translation key. Slowly, a basic communication system developed. The unknown ship, calling itself a Terran vessel, agreed to meet for direct talks. They suggested a neutral location, an abandoned mining station in the outer part of the system. Sir, Commander Yextal said, this could be a trap. Everything about this situation could be a trap, Admiral Zexthol replied. But they haven't attacked us, even though they clearly could have. And we need to know what we're dealing with. What if there are more of them? Lieutenant Vexmore asked. The Admiral looked at the tactical display, showing their fleet surrounding the single mysterious ship. Then we're probably already in more trouble than we know. He made his decision. Prepare my shuttle. We're going to meet these Terrans and find out what they want, and why they can make our best ships look like children's toys. As the Admiral's shuttle moved toward the meeting point, the unknown ship followed at a respectful distance. It moved smoothly and silently, no longer showing off its impossible maneuvers. But Admiral Zexthol knew that the display of power had been intentional. These Terrans had wanted to show what they could do before they talked. The question now was, what did they want, and how had they developed technology so far beyond anything the Empire possessed? In a few hours he would find out, and he suspected that the answers would change everything. The abandoned mining station floated in empty space like a dead metal skeleton. Admiral Zexthol's shuttle docked carefully with the old structure, while the mysterious Terran ship waited nearby. The Admiral brought only essential personnel, Commander Yextal, Lieutenant Vexmore, and a team of guards. Atmospheric readings? The Admiral asked as they entered the station. Thin but breathable, sir, Commander Yexdal reported. The Terrans arrived first and seemed to have activated the life support systems. Admiral Zexthal felt uneasy about that. How did the aliens know Imperial atmospheric requirements? How did they know anything about Zeltharian biology? Another mystery to add to the growing list. They moved through the old corridors, their footsteps echoing in the empty spaces. The mining station had been abandoned for decades, but someone had recently cleaned and powered up the main conference room. Fresh air cycled through the vents and the lights worked properly. They prepared for us, Lieutenant Vexmore observed nervously. Yes, the Admiral agreed. The question is how long they've been preparing. The conference room door slid open, and Admiral Zexthal got his first look at a human being. She was smaller than a Zeltharian, with only 2 eyes and no visible natural weapons. Her skin was pale and strange metal devices were attached to her head and arms. She wore a simple uniform that looked practical rather than ceremonial. When she stood to greet them, her movements were controlled and precise. Admiral, she said in accented but understandable Imperial standard. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, thank you for coming. Admiral Zexthal stared. You speak our language? We're quick learners, Captain Chen replied with what might have been a smile. Please sit. We have much to discuss. The Admiral remained standing, studying the strange alien. She showed no fear, no nervousness at meeting representatives of the galaxy's most powerful empire. Her calm confidence was somehow more unsettling than any weapon. What are you? He asked bluntly. Human, Captain Chen replied. From a place called Earth. Though I suspect that doesn't mean much to you yet. We have detailed maps of this entire region of space, Commander Yexdal said. There is no planet called Earth within 1,000 light years of here. That's correct, Captain Chen agreed. Earth isn't in this region of space. Then how did you get here? Lieutenant Vexmore demanded. Captain Chen gestured to the window where her ship was visible in the distance. Different question first. Your people have been exploring space for centuries. You have faster-than-light travel, advanced sensors, powerful weapons. But tell me, Admiral, how do you move between stars? Admiral Zexthal frowned. Jump drives. We fold space-time to create temporary bridges between distant points. Impressive, Captain Chen said. Very advanced. But you're still working within the same dimensional framework. You bend space, but you stay in the same layer of reality. Layer of reality, Commander Yexdal repeated. What does that mean? Captain Chen touched one of the metal devices on her temple. May I show you something? Nothing dangerous, just a demonstration. The Admiral nodded cautiously. Captain Chen walked to the window and pressed her hand against the metal wall beside it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her hand began to glow with a soft light, and then it passed through the solid metal wall. Impossible, whispered Lieutenant Vexmore. Not impossible, Captain Chen said, pulling her hand back through the wall as if it were made of water, just operating under different rules. Your species developed technology to work with reality as you understand it. My species learned to step outside that reality. She returned to her seat while the Imperial officers stared in shock. The universe has many layers, she explained. Think of them like sheets of paper stacked on top of each other. Your empire exists on one sheet. You've mapped it completely, conquered most of it, become the dominant power, but you've never learned to move between the sheets. And humans have? Admiral Zexthal asked. We had to, Captain Chen replied. Earth isn't in this dimension originally. We're refugees from a parallel layer of reality. When our home dimension became uninhabitable, we learned to jump between layers to find new places to live. Admiral Zexthal sat down heavily. You're telling me you come from another universe? Another layer of the same universe, Captain Chen corrected. The physics are slightly different in each layer. What's impossible in your dimension might be normal in mine, and vice versa. Commander Yexdal leaned forward. The way your ship moves and... We don't actually move through space the way you understand it, Captain Chen explained. We convince space to move around us. We shift partially into other dimensional layers where the rules of motion are different. From your perspective, we're breaking physics. From our perspective, we're just using a more complete understanding of how reality works. How many layers are there? Lieutenant Vexmore asked. More than you can imagine, Captain Chen replied. And some of them contain things that make both our species look like children playing with toys. That statement sent a chill through the room. Is that a threat? Admiral Zexthal asked. A warning, Captain Chen said seriously. Your empire has grown strong in this layer of reality. But there are threats from other layers that your weapons and shields can't stop. Things that could consume entire star systems before you could even detect them. She stood and walked back to the window. We've been watching your species for some time. You're impressive. Organized, advanced, capable of great achievements. But you're also vulnerable to attacks from dimensions you can't perceive. And you're here to protect us? Commander Yexidal asked skeptically. We're here to offer a partnership, Captain Chen replied. We'll share certain technologies and provide protection against extra-dimensional threats. In return, we want access to your star charts and knowledge of what lies beyond the galactic rim in this reality layer. Why? Admiral Zexthul demanded. What's out there that you need? Captain Chen's expression became grim. We're not the only species that learned to jump between dimensional layers. Some of the others are not as friendly as we are. We've been tracking something that's been hunting human colonies across multiple realities. The trail leads to this region of space in this dimensional layer. Something is hunting your people? Lieutenant Vexmore asked. Something that exists in the spaces between layers, Captain Chen confirmed. Something that feeds on entire civilizations. And according to our calculations, it's moving toward your empire's territory. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. You want our help to hunt this thing? Admiral Zexthul asked. We want to prevent it from finding fertile hunting grounds, Captain Chen replied. Your empire represents billions of lives spread across hundreds of worlds. That's exactly the kind of target this entity looks for. Admiral Zexthul studied the human captain. Everything about this situation was beyond his understanding, but her sincerity seemed genuine. And if even half of what she claimed was true, what exactly are you proposing? He asked. Captain Chen smiled again. A formal alliance between the Terran Expeditionary Corps and the Zeltharian Empire. We'll establish joint research facilities to study dimensional science. We'll share defensive technologies, and we'll prepare for threats that neither of our species could handle alone. And in return, we get a new home in this reality layer, and you get protection from things your current technology can't even detect. Admiral Zexthul looked at his officers. They appeared as overwhelmed as he felt. This will have to be approved by the High Council, he said finally. Of course, Captain Chen agreed. But Admiral, time may be more limited than you think. The entity we're tracking moves faster than our fastest ships, and it's very good at staying hidden until it's too late. How long do we have? Commander Yexdal asked. Captain Chen checked a device on her wrist. Based on our projections, maybe 6 months before it reaches the outer edge of your territory. Less if it's already found a way to jump directly between dimensional layers in this region. Admiral Zexthul stood up. I'll contact the Council immediately. Thank you, Captain Chen said. And Admiral, this meeting will be reported to my superiors as well. There are thousands of human ships in nearby dimensional layers, waiting to see how these negotiations proceed. Thousands. Admiral Zexthul tried not to show his shock at that number. As they prepared to leave, he had one final question. Captain Chen, how long have your people been watching us? She paused at the door. Long enough to know that you're worth saving, Admiral. The question now is whether we can save each other in time. The High Council's response arrived faster than Admiral Zexthul expected, and it was not what he hoped to hear. Absolutely not, declared High Counselor Rex Thane over the emergency communication link. The Empire does not negotiate with unknown aliens who make impossible claims about other dimensions. Admiral Zexthul stood in the command center of Nexus 7, surrounded by his officers who had all heard the Council's decision. High Counselor, with respect, you didn't see what their ship could do. Their technology is far beyond ours, which is exactly why we cannot trust them, Rex Thane replied coldly. If they are as powerful as you claim, why do they need our help? This is clearly a trick to make us lower our defenses. Sir, Admiral Zexthul tried again. Captain Chen warned us about something hunting across dimensions. If she's telling the truth, she's an alien who appeared from nowhere with a story designed to frighten us, the High Counselor interrupted. The Empire has faced threats before. We have always prevailed through strength, not by trusting strangers with impossible technology. Commander Yexdal stepped forward. High Counselor, the Council should see the sensor recordings of their ship's capabilities. I have seen them, Rex Thane said dismissively. Clever tricks and advanced hologram technology. Nothing more. Admiral Zexthul felt his temper rising. High Counselor, this is not a hologram. Their ship moved in ways that... Enough, Rex Thane commanded. The Council's decision is final. You will capture or destroy the alien vessel immediately. The Third Fleet is already moving to your position. The communication ended, leaving the command center in uncomfortable silence. Sir, Lieutenant Vexmore said quietly, the Third Fleet is our largest battle group. Over 200 ships including the flagship Domination. Admiral Zexthul nodded grimly. I know, and I don't think it's going to be enough. 6 hours later, the Third Fleet arrived in overwhelming force. Admiral Kexthul, the fleet commander, took personal control of the operation. His flagship Domination was the largest ship in the Imperial Navy, bristling with enough weapons to destroy entire planets. Admiral Zexthul, Admiral Kexthul announced over the fleet communication system, you are relieved of command in this sector. The Council has given me authority to handle this situation properly. Admiral Zexthul watched from Nexus 7 as hundreds of Imperial warships surrounded the single human vessel. Captain Chen's ship looked impossibly small against the massive display of Imperial power. Unknown alien vessel, Admiral Kexthul broadcast, surrender immediately, or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to comply. The human ship's response came quickly, but not from Captain Chen. A new voice spoke, older and more formal. Imperial Fleet. This is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. Captain Chen is no longer in command of diplomatic relations. You have chosen to threaten our representative. This is most unfortunate. Admiral Zexthul felt his blood run cold. Another ship had appeared from nowhere, twice the size of Captain Chen's vessel but still smaller than a single Imperial cruiser. Sir, Sensor Analyst Kethvar called out, I'm reading massive energy buildup from both human ships. Admiral Kexthul, Admiral Zexthul tried to warn over the communication system. You need to reconsider this course of action. Silence, Admiral Kexthul snapped. All ships prepare to engage. Show these aliens the power of the Empire. What happened next redefined Admiral Zexthul's understanding of warfare. The two human ships didn't retreat or surrender. Instead, they seemed to multiply, sir. Kethvar shouted, I'm reading multiple contacts. The ships are splitting apart? On the tactical display, the two human vessels became 4, then 8, then 16. Each copy appeared solid and real, with full energy signatures and active weapon systems. Impossible, whispered Commander Yextel. Are they holograms? No, sir, Kethvar replied, his voice shaking. Each one shows as a separate, real ship. But that's not possible. They can't just create matter from nothing. Admiral Kexthul apparently thought the same thing. All ships target the original vessels. Ignore the copies. The Third Fleet opened fire. Admiral Zexthul had seen many space battles, but nothing like this. 200 Imperial ships unleashed their full firepower at once. The space around the human vessels filled with plasma bolts, missile trails, and energy beams. It was enough destruction to wipe out any normal fleet. The human ships danced through the attack like it was rain. But these weren't the same graceful movements Captain Chen's ship had demonstrated earlier. This was something else entirely. The human vessels moved in ways that hurt to watch, appearing in multiple places simultaneously, phasing in and out of visible reality. Admiral, Kethvar called out, our weapons are passing right through some of the targets, but others are taking hits and showing no damage. How is that possible? Admiral Zexthul demanded, I don't know, sir. It's like they exist and don't exist at the same time. The human counterattack began. The Imperial ships started shutting down one by one, not destroyed, not damaged, simply turned off. Their engines stopped, their weapons powered down, their shields collapsed. One by one, the most powerful warships in the galaxy became floating metal shells. What's happening to our fleet? Admiral Zexthul asked. Unknown, sir. Each ship reports complete system failure just before they go dark. No damage, no hull breaches, no casualties. Their ships are intact, but nothing works. Admiral Kexthul's voice came over the communication system, filled with panic. All ships, emergency retreat. Repeat, emergency retreat. But it was too late. The human ships moved through the Imperial fleet like ghosts, touching each vessel with some invisible force that shut down every system. Within 20 minutes, 200 of the Empire's finest warships were drifting powerless in space. The flagship Domination was the last to fall. Admiral Zexthul watched on his screens as one of the human vessels approached the massive battleship and simply touched its hull. All the lights went out. Then Admiral Harrison's voice filled the communication channels, speaking calmly as if nothing unusual had happened. Imperial commanders, your crews are safe and unharmed. Your ships are undamaged. We have simply disabled your technology temporarily. This demonstration was necessary to prevent unnecessary deaths. Admiral Zexthul found his voice. What did you do to them? We convinced their electrical systems to stop working, Admiral Harrison replied matter-of-factly. It's a simple matter of adjusting the quantum states of their power cores. Completely reversible. You can control our technology, Admiral Zexthul asked in horror. We can control the basic forces that make your technology possible, Admiral Harrison corrected. The electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, gravity itself. When you understand reality at a dimensional level, manipulating these things becomes straightforward. Commander Yexdal stared at the tactical display showing hundreds of disabled Imperial ships. They could have destroyed us all. Yes, Admiral Harrison confirmed, apparently hearing the comment. But destruction serves no purpose. We prefer to demonstrate capability rather than malice. What happens now? Admiral Zexthul asked. Now you contact your High Council again, Admiral Harrison replied. Show them this recording. Explain that we disabled your entire fleet without causing a single casualty. Make them understand that we could have done much worse. And if they still refuse to negotiate, then we will withdraw and leave you to face the entity from between dimensions alone, Admiral Harrison said seriously. We've done what we can to warn you. The choice of whether to accept our help is yours. Admiral Zexthul looked around the command center. His officers stared at the screens in shock, watching the most powerful fleet in Imperial history floating helpless in space. How long before you restore power to our ships? He asked. They should begin reactivating within the hour, Admiral Harrison replied. Consider it a gesture of good faith. We could leave them disabled, but we won't. The human ships began to fade from the sensors, shifting back into whatever dimensional layers they had come from. Admiral Zexthul, Admiral Harrison's voice said as his ship prepared to depart. I hope your council makes the right decision, because the threat we warned you about is real, and it's closer than you think. Admiral Zexthul prepared another message to the High Council, this time with video evidence of what the humans could do. He suspected that seeing their entire fleet disabled by two small ships would change the Council's perspective considerably. The question was whether it would change it quickly enough. As he began recording his report, Admiral Zexthul realized that the Empire was no longer the most powerful force in their region of space. That honor now belonged to mysterious humans from another dimension, who could disable their technology with a touch and move through reality like it was made of water. The Empire had just learned what it felt like to be completely outmatched. The High Council convened an emergency session within hours of receiving Admiral Zexthul's report. For the first time in 3 centuries, the supreme leaders of the Zeltharian Empire faced the reality that they were not the most powerful force in the galaxy. 2 ships, High Counselor Rex Thane said quietly, staring at the tactical recordings. 2 small ships disabled our entire Third Fleet without firing a single shot. The power requirements alone should be impossible, added Counselor Vex Thara, the Empire's leading scientist. To manipulate electromagnetic fields across hundreds of ships simultaneously, the energy needed would be enormous, unless they're not using energy the way we understand it, suggested Counselor Hextall. The Admiral's report mentions dimensional manipulation. Perhaps they're drawing power from sources we can't detect. High Counselor Rex Thane rubbed his temples. Are we really discussing the possibility that these aliens come from other dimensions? The evidence is compelling, Counselor Vexithera admitted reluctantly. Their ship movements violate known physics. Their technology operates on principles we don't understand, and they've demonstrated capabilities far beyond our own. Then what do we do? Asked Counselor Kexvar. Our military superiority has been the foundation of imperial power for centuries. If these humans can disable our fleets at will, we negotiate, Rexthane said finally. Send word to Admiral Zexithul. Tell him to contact the humans and arrange a formal meeting. 2 days later, Captain Chen returned to the abandoned mining station. This time she brought companions, 3 other humans who introduced themselves as scientists and engineers. Admiral Zexthul arrived with a full diplomatic team and authorization to speak for the Empire. Captain Chen, Admiral Zexthul began. "The High Council has agreed to consider your proposal." "I'm glad," Captain Chen replied. "But I should warn you that the situation has become more urgent. We've detected signs that the entity we're tracking has already reached your galaxy." "What kind of signs?" asked Ambassador Hexthul, the Empire's chief negotiator. Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the human scientists, activated a holographic display. 3 star systems on your galaxy's rim have gone completely silent in the past week. No communications, no energy signatures, no signs of life. Equipment failure, suggested Ambassador Hexthul, or natural disasters. All 3 systems at once? Dr. Kim shook her head. "We sent scout probes through dimensional layers to investigate. The systems are still there, but they're empty." "Empty how?" Admiral Zexthul asked. "No life signs anywhere. Planets intact but dead, as if every living thing simply disappeared." Dr. Kim manipulated the hologram to show detailed scans. "But here's the strange part. There's no evidence of destruction. No radiation, no weapon damage, no signs of struggle. Everything is just gone." The Imperial representatives exchanged worried glances. "Those systems contained over 50 million Zeltharian citizens. You think this entity consumed them somehow?" Ambassador Hexthul asked. "That's what it does," confirmed Captain Chen. "It feeds on life force across entire worlds. We've seen it happen in 12 other dimensional layers over the past century. How do we stop it?" Admiral Zexthul demanded. "We don't fight it directly," Dr. Kim explained. "The entity exists partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional weapons pass right through it, but we can create dimensional barriers to contain it, force it back into the spaces between realities." "What do you need from us?" Ambassador Hexthul asked. Captain Chen leaned forward. "We need to establish joint research stations throughout your territory. Our scientists will work with your people to develop new detection methods and defensive technologies. We also need access to your deep space monitoring networks. And in return, we'll share selective technologies that will advance your civilization by centuries," Dr. Kim replied. "Improved faster-than-light travel, energy sources that don't require fuel, and defensive systems that can protect against threats from multiple dimensions." Ambassador Hexthul consulted with his team privately, then returned to the table. "The Council has authorized me to negotiate a formal alliance. But we need guarantees, such as," Captain Chen asked. "First, we want limits on how many human ships can operate in Imperial space. Second, we want human technology transfers to be gradual and controlled. Third, we want assurance that your people won't interfere in Imperial internal affairs." "Reasonable terms," Captain Chen agreed. "But we have conditions too. We want the right to establish permanent bases in 3 systems of our choosing. We want access to your historical records about the galaxy's outer regions. And we want a seat on any council that makes decisions about dimensional defense." The negotiations continued for hours, but both sides were motivated by the growing threat. Reports kept arriving of more systems going silent on the Imperial frontier. Whatever was consuming entire worlds was moving inward, toward the more populated core systems. Finally, Ambassador Hexthul and Captain Chen signed the Dimensional Defense Alliance. It was the first treaty in Imperial history with beings from outside their reality layer. "Now," Captain Chen said as the documents were sealed, "we get to work. Dr. Kim will brief your scientists on dimensional theory. Admiral Harrison is bringing the first wave of human ships through the dimensional barriers. And I need to show Admiral Zexthul something that will change how you think about this galaxy." An hour later, Admiral Zexthul stood on the observation deck of Captain Chen's ship as it shifted into a different dimensional layer. Through the viewing ports, he could see space as the humans saw it. The galaxy looked completely different. "Those lights," he whispered, staring at brilliant streams of energy flowing between star systems. "What are they?" "Dimensional currents," Captain Chen explained. "Natural pathways between reality layers. Your people can't see them because you exist in only one dimension, but they're everywhere. And those dark areas? Tiers in spacetime. Places where the barriers between dimensions have been damaged or destroyed." Captain Chen pointed to a particularly large dark zone. "That's where the entity entered your galaxy. It's using the dimensional tiers to move faster than light without using conventional travel methods." Admiral Zexthul studied the display with growing understanding. "It's not just consuming worlds randomly. It's following those energy streams, using them like roads." "Exactly. And according to our calculations, the streams all converge near your capital world. The Admiral felt his blood freeze. How long before it reaches the core systems? At its current rate of consumption, maybe 2 months. Less if it learns to use the dimensional currents more efficiently. Then we'd better work fast, Admiral Zexthul said grimly. Over the following weeks, the alliance between humans and the Empire developed rapidly. Human ships began appearing throughout Imperial space, but these were different from Captain Chen's vessel. They were massive construction ships that existed partially in multiple dimensions, allowing them to build structures that were impossible by Imperial standards. The first joint research station came online near the frontier, staffed by both human and Zeltharian scientists. Within days, they had developed sensors that could track movement between dimensional layers. But the news from those sensors was not encouraging. Admiral, Dr. Kim reported during a joint briefing, "We've confirmed the entity's location and movement pattern. It's definitely heading toward the core systems, but it's moving faster than we expected." "How fast?" Admiral Zexthul asked. "At current acceleration, it will reach the Kethmore system in 3 weeks. Can we evacuate?" asked Ambassador Hexthul. 50 million people? Dr. Kim shook her head. "Not in 3 weeks. And even if we could, where would they go? This thing can follow dimensional energy signatures. Running only delays the inevitable." "Then we fight," Admiral Zexthul declared. "We can't fight it directly," Captain Chen reminded him. "But we might be able to trap it." "Oh," Admiral Zexthul demanded. Dr. Kim activated another holographic display. "We create a dimensional maze. Use the natural energy currents to guide the entity into a pocket dimension where it can't escape." "A pocket dimension?" Ambassador Hexthul repeated. "A small bubble of reality separate from the main universe. We've used the technique before, but never on something this large." "What do you need?" Admiral Zexthul asked. "Every ship in your fleet, positioned at specific coordinates throughout the system. They'll need to carry dimensional generators powered by your fusion reactors. When the entity arrives, we'll activate all the generators simultaneously." "And if it doesn't work?" Captain Chen met his gaze steadily. "Then both our species will need to find new homes in dimensions the entity hasn't reached yet." Admiral Zexthul looked around the briefing room at the mixture of human and Zeltharian faces. 3 weeks ago, he hadn't known humans existed. Now they were working together to save both their civilizations from something that existed in the spaces between realities. "Then we'd better make sure it works," he said finally. The preparations began immediately. Imperial ships throughout the sector received new equipment and specific positioning orders. Human engineers worked around the clock with Zeltharian technicians, preparing for a battle unlike any in recorded history. And somewhere in the dark between dimensions, something ancient and hungry continued its steady approach toward the heart of the Empire.